My name is Marin Calloway, and I am a combat medic. I have been one for 12 years, which is long enough to know that the galaxy does not care about your rank, your training, or your prayers. It cares about what you do when everything is burning, and no one is coming to save you. I was stationed on Ashenmore, a volcanic frontier world at the edge of mapped space. If you looked it up in any colonial database, you would find 3 words next to its name: low priority assignment. That was a polite way of saying the military had run out of places to put me. I had served 2 tours on contested border worlds, lost too many people I was supposed to save, and started arguing with officers who made decisions from behind desks. So they sent me to a planet made of lava rock and bad weather and told me to stay quiet. Ashenmore was shared territory. Humans had a small colonial outpost on the southern plains. The Varathi had a nesting sanctuary in the northern highlands. If you have never seen a Varathi, let me paint the picture for you. Imagine a creature the size of a shuttle, covered in scales that shimmer like liquid metal, with wings that block out the sun, and eyes that look straight through you. The rest of the galaxy calls them dragons, and they have earned that name over 10,000 years of being the oldest and most powerful species anyone has ever encountered. They did not like us. That is putting it gently. The Varathi matriarch, Sirathos, had made her opinion of humans very clear the day our outpost was established. She told our colonial governor that we smelled like mortality and that we were not to set foot in the highlands under any circumstances. Their nesting grounds were sacred. Varathi only reproduce once every few centuries, and their hatchlings are considered more precious than entire star systems. Touching one without permission is a crime punishable by consequences I do not want to describe. Entire colonies have been erased from existence for less. So we stayed on our side. They stayed on theirs. And for 2 years, nothing happened on Ashenmore except rain, tremors, and the slow, boring work of maintaining a settlement that nobody important cared about. Then the sky split open. It started as a tremor, which was normal for Ashenmore. But this one did not stop. It grew deeper, angrier, and then the northern ridge erupted in a line of fire that stretched from horizon to horizon, not one volcano. 7. All at once, in a pattern too precise to be natural. Our sensors confirmed it within minutes. Subsurface detonations. Someone had planted charges along the volcanic belt and triggered a chain eruption aimed directly at the Varathi nesting sanctuary. We later learned it was the Keth Syndicate, a black market cartel that trades in rare biological materials. Varathi hatchling scales are the most valuable substance in the known galaxy. Someone had decided that a few dead dragons were worth the profit. Our outpost commander ordered an immediate evacuation south. Every shuttle, every transport, every person moving toward the coast. I was loading medical supplies onto a cargo sled when I looked north and saw the highlands disappearing behind a wall of smoke and orange light. Our communications officer told me the Varathi sanctuary had gone dark. Their systems were destroyed by the electromagnetic pulse from the eruptions. No signals in, no signals out. I stood there with a crate of bandages in my hands, staring at that wall of fire, and I thought about what was on the other side of it. Living beings, maybe injured, definitely cut off, with no way to call for help. My commander told me to get on the transport. I put down the crate. I picked up my field kit and I walked north. I did not do it because I was brave. I want to be honest about that. Bravery is what people call it afterward, when they are writing reports and giving speeches. In the moment, it was not bravery. It was the same reflex that makes you reach for a falling glass before your brain catches up with your hand. I am a medic. There were beings in danger. My feet moved before my thoughts could stop them. The trek into the fire zone took 3 hours. My thermal suit was rated for extreme environments, but Ashenmore was rewriting the definition of extreme that day. I could feel the heat through my gloves. My visor fogged, cleared, fogged again. The air tasted like metal and sulfur even through my respirator. When I reached the lower slopes of the sanctuary, I stopped breathing for a moment, not because of the heat, because of what I saw. The nesting grounds were destroyed. Lava channels had been redirected with surgical precision toward the egg chambers. I found Varathi guardians who had fallen, trying to shield the nests with their own bodies. Even still, even in that terrible silence, they were magnificent. Their scales caught the firelight and threw it back in colors I have no names for. I wanted to stop. I wanted to grieve for them. But I could hear something ahead, past the collapsed stone and the rivers of glowing rock. A sound, small, desperate, alive. I climbed through a shattered chamber, cutting my hands on volcanic glass, and I found it. A Virathi hatchling. It was the size of a large dog, curled against a fallen pillar, its scales still soft and new, and shimmering with colors that shifted when it moved. One wing was crumpled beneath it at a wrong angle. Its flank was burned, the delicate scales there darkened and peeling. It was making a sound I had never heard before, a high, thin cry that vibrated in my chest like a tuning fork. I froze. Every warning I had ever received about Virathi hatchlings crashed through my mind at once. Do not approach, do not touch, do not even look too long. The penalties are absolute. Your life, your colony, everything you have ever known, gone. The hatchling opened its eyes and looked at me. They were gold, liquid gold, like someone had poured sunlight into two perfect spheres. And in those eyes I saw something I have seen in every field hospital, on every broken battlefield, in the face of every wounded creature I have ever knelt beside. I saw a child who was afraid and in pain and alone. I reached out my hand. It flinched. Of course it did. It had never seen a human before. I was small and strange, and I smelled wrong. But I kept my hand steady, and I spoke to it the way I speak to every patient, softly, slowly, with the kind of calm that is not calm at all, but simply the sound of someone refusing to let fear win. I splinted its wing with a field kit designed for human arms. It was not a perfect job. The bones were different, denser, shaped in ways my training had not prepared me for. But I got the wing stabilized, and the hatchling stopped crying long enough to sniff my fingers, with a nose that was surprisingly warm and dry. Then I looked around, and realized our situation. The lava was advancing. The chamber was filling with smoke. We had maybe 20 minutes before this entire section of the highlands became uninhabitable, and this hatchling, even as small as it was, weighed nearly as much as I did. Virathi bones are dense. Their scales have metal in them. Carrying it in my arms was not going to work. So I turned around and knelt with my back to it. "Climb on," I said. I do not know if it understood my words, but it understood my posture. It understood what I was offering. It crawled forward on its 3 good limbs and pulled itself onto my back, its small claws gripping my armor for purchase. The claws went through the armor. They punctured the outer shell and dug into my skin. I felt blood run warm down my spine. I stood up. My knees almost gave out. The weight was enormous, a dense, trembling, living weight that pressed down on every vertebra and made my legs shake. I took one step, then another. Then I stopped thinking about steps and just walked. What followed was the longest journey of my life. It could not have been more than 4 kilometers, but it felt like crossing an ocean. The ground was cracked and glowing in places, and I had to pick my path carefully, stepping on cooled rock and praying it held. Twice, I crossed lava channels on bridges of stone that were crumbling. Even as I walked across them, I could feel the heat rising through the soles of my boots, soft and terrible, like walking on a stove. My thermal suit failed in stages. The outer layer went first, the coating bubbling and peeling away. Then the respirator filter started to clog with ash, and each breath became a negotiation between my lungs and the burning air. I tore a strip from my undershirt and held it over my mouth. It helped for a while. The hatchling held on. Its claws dug deeper every time I stumbled, and I could feel each new puncture, each small, sharp reminder that I was carrying something alive. It pressed its face against the back of my neck, and its breath was hot but somehow comforting, a rhythm against my skin that said, "I am here, I am here, I am still here." I talked to it. I do not remember everything I said. I told it about rain, because I thought it might never have seen rain. I told it about the ocean on my homeworld, how the water stretches out so far you cannot see where it ends. I told it about my mother, who used to sing a song I have mostly forgotten except for the melody. I hummed that melody while the world burned around us, and the hatchling made a low rumbling sound against my back that vibrated through my ribs. I fell. The first time, I caught myself on my hands and managed to push back up. The second time, I went down hard, face against the hot stone, and I could not move. My arms were shaking. My legs were beyond shaking. They were simply refusing. The hatchling nuzzled my neck. It pressed its head against my cheek, and I felt that rumbling again, that deep vibration, and I realized it was trying to comfort me. This tiny ancient creature, this sacred being that entire civilizations would go to war to protect, was lying on the back of a broken human in the middle of an inferno and trying to make me feel better. I got up. I do not know how. I got up. The final obstacle found us at the edge of the safe zone. A fresh lava flow, 20 meters wide, blocking the only path south. I stood at its edge and felt the heat push against me like a wall. There was no crossing, no way around, no time to find another route. I sat down. I held the hatchling in my lap. I covered its eyes with my hand, so it would not have to see what was coming, and I thought, very clearly, and without drama, that this was where I would die. I was not angry about it. I was sad about the hatchling. I wished I could have gotten it somewhere safe. Then it raised its head and opened its mouth, and the sound that came out was nothing like the small cries from before. It was deep and resonant and impossibly loud for something so young, a sound that traveled through the ground and the air and the stone itself. A call, instinctive, ancient, coded into Vairathi blood from before they built cities or sailed between stars. The ground shook. Not from the eruptions, from something landing. Sirathos came down through the smoke, like a force of nature, immense, and wounded, and furious, and searching. She had been looking for surviving hatchlings. She had crossed through fire herself. Her scales were scorched, her wings torn, and her eyes blazed with a light that made the lava look dim. She saw us, a small, filthy, bleeding human, sitting in the ash with a Vairathi hatchling in her lap, a human who had touched the sacred young. I looked up at her. I did not beg. I did not explain. I did not apologize. Its wing is broken, I said. The splint needs to be reset in 6 hours, or the bone will set at the wrong angle. Sirathos said nothing for a long time. Then she reached down with claws that could have cut through starship hulls, and lifted the hatchling from my arms with a gentleness that made my throat tight. The hatchling chirped and pressed against its mother's jaw. Then it turned back toward me and cried, reaching with its small clawed hands. Sirathos looked at the hatchling. She looked at me. Then she picked me up too. I woke in a Vairathi medical chamber, which was a place no human had ever been before. Their healers were trying to treat my burns, but they had no idea how human skin works. They kept attempting to regrow scales on my back. I laughed, and it hurt so much to laugh that I laughed harder. Weeks later, when the fires were out and the investigations were underway, Sirathos addressed the conclave of civilized worlds. I was not there, but I heard what she said. She told them that in 10,000 years of Vairathi history, no member of her species had ever owed a life debt to what they considered a lesser race. She said I was small and soft and fragile, and that by every measure, the Vairathi used to judge worthiness, I was insignificant. And then she said something that, according to the diplomats who were present, silenced the entire chamber. She did not carry that hatchling because she was strong. She carried it because she could not leave it. There was no calculation, no ambition, no expectation of reward. She simply could not walk away from a child in pain. The humans have a word for this. They call it compassion. I think we have all been underestimating what that word means. That was 6 months ago. I am back on Ashenmore now, helping with reconstruction. The scars on my back are still there. Claw marks layered over burns. The Vairathi offered to heal them. I said no. I earned those scars. They are mine. The hatchling's name is Vaira now. It means carried from fire in the old Vairathi tongue. It is growing fast, already twice the size it was when I found it, and it keeps escaping the sanctuary to glide down to our settlement. It finds me every time. It climbs onto my back and perches there like it belongs, and I stagger around the outpost with a baby dragon draped over my shoulders, while my crew takes pictures, and the Vairathi guardians pretend to be annoyed. People keep calling me a hero. Journalists, diplomats, politicians from species that never gave humans a second glance before. I do not feel like a hero. I feel like a medic who saw something small and hurt and picked it up. But maybe that is the thing they do not understand. Every species in this galaxy has warriors and conquerors. They all understand strength and power and dominance. What they cannot wrap their minds around is why a human would break herself to save something that is not hers. Something that would not have done the same for her. Something that, by every law and every logic, she should have left behind. We do not leave things behind. That is the human flaw. That is the human gift. And honestly, if Vira gets any bigger, I am going to need a much stronger back.